Well, hello and welcome to today's show. Today we're going to talk about making sausage and fermentation. And we got a roll title and we'll come right back. I don't know why, but when I see myself on the monitor, I got this gordo right here going on. I guess I do this for you because, you never trust a skinny cook, and, hey, it's part of the look, I guess. Got my hairnet going on here. I want to talk to you a little bit about fermentation, natural fermentation. You can naturally ferment sausage. Lots of people all over the world do that. Now, the danger with that is, we've already covered in a previous video, is something like botulinum and listeria. Both those, I think, are anaerobic bacteria. They're like gut bacteria. Botulism kills you by making a poison. You've heard of Botox. And of course, listeria gets to you because it actually infects you. So those are not good. Now, if we can keep our meat clean, that's fine. The problem I have with it, what kind of freaks me out about it, is you can't really taste either of those two bacteria. It's not like you can smell it and it goes off, right? You can't really tell if they're there or not. The way you tell they're there or not, either with a microscope and checking it, or if you get sick or not, or die. So we want to be careful with that. That's why a lot of people will spring the $20, $25 for a culture, which I'll use a culture here. Now, to use a culture, we'll need a food source. It depends on the type of bacteria that are in your culture. There may be one bacteria or more. What I use is using 3, and it's just used for quick acidification. And this is dextrose. It's a simple sugar. So I like using the culture that I use simply because if I feed it with dextrose, I can feed my guys and they'll take over the neighborhood, like a neighborhood watch. Well, when I stitch this together, it looks like, and starting to edit, it looks like it's going to be about 15 minutes. That's not too bad. I prefer 10, 20 if I have to. But I did break this up into 2 different shows. The first part where I just kind of show you the flow through, talking a little bit about the pathogens, because we've spent some time with parasites. Now I want to talk about some of the bad ones. I just mentioned listeria and botulinum. Those are 2 bad ones that we know about, that we hear from time to time because they can be fatal. We take big issue with that. Now, botulinum, it doesn't like refrigerator temperatures, and it loves around 120 degrees. It uses simple sugars. It itself is not bad, but the poison it puts out is like a crazy cat woman, dog woman who rescues a lot of animals, and they poop all around the house. After she gets evicted or falls off the twig, the house is toxic. That's kind of what we have going on there. Whereas listeria is kind of like your crazy uncle who all he does is sit around and stay high all the time, and you're getting a contact high. You're a professional driver and might lose your job because, if you pop positive for weed, you get rid of your crazy uncle and you get rid of the problem. Well, listeria is kind of that same way. So those are 2 different things. They have different environments. They can do different things. Well, some sugars will work as a cure for some organisms. And we know that we don't have to be a bioengineer for that, or a biologist, microbiologist for that. We kind of get it. Salt can kill. The sugars like table sugar, sucrose, actually breaks down into fructose and dextrose. And the culture that I use, the particular one I'm using now, it prefers dextrose. So we put it in its little environment, and what we're going to do is we're simply, think about it like this, like some TV show, Mythical Land, where there's a big plane, all the copper and tin and gold and minerals that we need, and it also has the water and the food and the whole 9 yards. And we got different tribes all over, and they all want to take over, and they want the stuff. So what do? We got enemies and frenemies and friends and whatever, and alliances. What we're trying to do is make it so we take the resources over. Well, a lot of things don't like acidic conditions. For instance, like they say that, I think it's botulism. They said, if you get it below 4.6 in a pH, it's of course, it's obviously shelf stable at about 5.3, a little bit below 5.3 for most things, but even better if it's more tart, more acidic than that. And they say like 4.3, like in a pickle, that will be okay to be shelf stable, and that botulism can't live there. Well, botulism is an anaerobic
organism. It can't have oxygen, so it needs to be, it's not facultative, so it can't have it. So it likes the vacuum. If you don't have it in a vacuum, it's fine. So something like an open refrigerator is probably not going to live that way, but it can. Studies show that it can live below 4.3, if I read right, but it can't thrive that way. So we have our plane with our different factions out here. So how do we win the war? How do we secure it for ourselves? Well, we bring in a huge flipping army of people. And that's what we do with culture. We're bringing in guys that we know. And even though our guys and their armies may eat the same food, we know if we outnumber them and we reproduce quickly and we can produce that, build our walls, which in this case would be the lowering of the pH by lactic acid, we set up camp before they get a chance to. So we're going to inject millions and billions of little soldiers into our food that we do know, and hopefully they take over before anything else can. Now I want to show you this right above, just real quick. This is the company, and I'm sorry, my little pointer is a lot smaller than it is on my screen. It's just the way OBS Studio runs. It uses the default size up here, but it's CHR Hansen. They're the company. You want to Google this Bactoferm Meat Manual Volume 1. What I do is I do CHR Hansen Meat Manual 1 because this is about sausages. And as you go through here, let me look up here. It's all about sausages, introduction to fermentation, and it really helps you get started really well. See, I want to go something like this on this particular grind where I have nice big white fat globs in here amongst the meat. And oftentimes to do this, we would do 2 grinds. We'd have separate fat that we could almost freeze, and we'd run it through a big plate and run the meat through something smaller so that we get this historic kind of shape of stuff. So there's a lot of stuff you can do as you experiment. That looks like a sopressata. Look at the nice red color that's been developed. But as you go through this, get that, and it will give you the many different types of cultures that they have and what they're good for. Let me get down to a page like here. If you go back to it, and see CHR Hansen has this like TSC 150. They're using 2 ones here. Lactobacillus Sakei and Staphylococcus carnosus. This one I think helps develop the color and flavor, and the Sakei is another one that they use. Here's a combination, 3 of them. It uses xylosis. That's one that is in my FLC, I think it is. So it tells you what they're good for, what type of products they're kind of engineered to be. And of course you can come down here. Where's my I find it somewhere in this. I use one because it can take a high temperature, and I have a piece of equipment now that can handle it, and it allows me to really, this is the one I use. See, yeah, it uses xylosis. And this can give me 2 different profiles, basically. And give me a mild profile if I do it on the cold side, and a different profile if I run it on the hot side. Very quick, I'll cover that in future. But you see all these different things. This one, BLC, Listeria Control, I think it's for Lactobacillus curvatus. All right, so I can't even say it, but you get the idea. The different cultures for different products, for different flavors, at different things. But we're just injecting our army into those planes so that we can get our walls built quickly. And even though we may use the same food, the same dextrose or glucose that some bad bugs do, we're outnumbering them, and the process of making the lactic acid makes the food safe in the same way that botulinum makes the toxin that kills people. It's just we're going to outnumber them.
All right. I also will use a little sodium erythrobate. What I use that for, or ethrobate, and I guess depending on where you come from, is this helps accelerate the curing process. And I use a little number 2 cure because, it takes a while, an extended period of time for the acidification and it to get shelf stable by the time I dry it out. Especially with a thicker sausage. Now, if you have something like a muscle meat, like a kappa or a ham, you really don't have that internal area. You know about E. coli. You hear about E. coli. You usually get something like a ground meat, something that we grind up because there's so much surface area. E. coli can live and do its little nasty. Well, natural fermentation is pretty straightforward. It's one of the oldest things. We learned early on to freeze things, dry things, salt things, or pickle things. And pickling comes in different ways. Now here is some homemade kimchi. And it's loaded with various natural things within the cabbage, within the different thing within the ginger. You've heard of ginger ale, ginger beer. You can make a ginger bug, make your own soft drinks if you like. You can do a lot of things with these natural fermenters. Now we'll put this in the refrigerator. Well, here I have two Plonks, two cheap wines, Christmas type affairs that were given to me. I don't drink wine, and I may have bought this one, and it says it is a natural wine, and yet it says contains sulfites. And of course this contains sulfites. Well, in this country where we are in America, it's a big country and it takes a long time to get across one part to the other, especially heavy stuff like wine and glass bottles and that kind of stuff. It's just a long time, especially if it comes from Europe or something like that. So we have stabilizers in the wine. They sit in a liquor store, package store, and go bad because we have a lot of variety over here. So they put stabilizers in just like we try to stabilize our sausage for a long period. We're no longer trying to stabilize it for the wintertime because, we're going to starve to death. We have modern food supplies. So we have that. But the problem with the sulfites is they can, if they're too high, interfere with your bacteria that you want to ferment your sausage. So I don't usually use wine in a food I'm going to dry out or ferment. If it were fresh wine, like the kimchi I just showed you, where it has all of its living organisms in there, at least maybe they've run out of food. We got a few of them in there starving out, but they're still on, hanging on. I might use that as a Kickstarter, like you would a starter dough for sourdough. You could do that. Also in the kimchi, we also have, as you can see, like garlic is a big one. So garlic, most of the plants will ferment, and they use at least some similar or family of, like the Plantaris family, which will acidify. I'm using, I think the culture I have has Carnosus and a Lactobacillus in there and some other one that I don't remember. So your basic stuff is this. Yes, we're going to grind it here, and I want to try to make something that's sort of sopressata, like a salami, sort of like that. And I want to grind it big. Now, the video, I don't know where it's going to air, but the video I did where I go into the standard for trichinella, and I look at the grind and the salt content for that, it's going to go up with the particle size. The percentage by 100 weight of salt that you're going to have is going to go up with the size of your particle. Now, we've frozen ours. If you watch that far in the series, if you caught those videos, they're still out there. If you do that, you'll find that we freeze ours just as my preferred thing. Before I even get started, I just freeze the meat, leave it frozen long enough. I get rid of my worms and parasite. Won't take care of my bacteria, my other pathogens, but it'll take care of that. So I don't feel as bad cutting some salt low with that. Plus, I will use the number 2 cure. Now, I'm not going to show you mixing the recipe because that's not what this is about a specific recipe. I'm going to show you a little bit about process. Because I want a big chunk, I want to keep my meats very cold when I grind it and when I mix it, which means I've got to get my water, start letting it warm up. Now, this is some distilled water. Keep some in the door. It works for my computer because the water cooled in there, the beast, the server I used. And of course, I will use some form of a digital thermometer so I know that my water is the correct temperature, not too hot, not too cold. I want it Goldilocks because it's going to go into my meat. We'll load it up with some plant food or some bacteria food. We're going to get her going and running. Now, for me, I have pretty well much no recipes. I weigh my salts, my chemicals, and the culture very, very specifically. But as far as the spices, what the heck? If it turns out a little spicy, a little hot, whatever, who cares? These are my 2 main spices for kind of my 2 different styles. Black pepper and fennel. This is ground. This is sort of what I would use for pepperoni. That's in a lot of salt. I use a higher salt level with the pepperoni and a little bit of fennel. Most everything uses garlic, because garlic is traditionally that natural fermenter that we used to have. Lots of salt. And of course, peppers. This is a crushed red pepper. I want some flake. So for presentation, I prefer the ground pepper, the pepper powders, the chili powders. I like cashmere a little bit better than I do, say, paprika. Paprika, there's different types. Obviously, it's a red pepper that's not hot. It's just used for color in most cases. But I can use the cashmere and get color and maybe get a little bit of flavor out of it. Also, there are a few times we might use a little extra hot if I want to kick things up a notch. So yeah, mixing kind of what you have is going to determine what recipe. I don't recommend using wines, at least not in the United States, unless you can get a hold of some wine that was freshly made, and so that it hasn't been stabilized and it doesn't have any of those stabilizing chemicals, because they don't want their wine to spoil and go to vinegar. Because what is vinegar? Doesn't it not mean sour wine? So yeah, I think that's the case. And they also don't want them to develop a mother inside of the wine bottle and all that kind of stuff go bad. So they're stabilized. So yeah, we might like it for flavor in a lot of recipes and a lot of editors. And I say, oh, put some wine in it. But it's probably going to jack up your culture or even your natural fermentation. Now, maybe you might put it in there if you just dry it out and you never pickled the sausage, but you'd have to get it pretty dry, get that water activity level down low. So what we're going to do is I've got a tray. Let me show you. All right, we've got that tray right there. The angle doesn't quite get it. It's on a half tray. Got a half tray of meat here. And what I'll do,
Hey, appreciate you watching. Do me a favor if you will. Subscribe to the channel, either the YouTube or the Rumble channel, which this appears in. And if you can, check the notification bell or settings to make sure that you get notified when new videos are posted. Appreciate it.
Is right when I get ready. I'll take another tray. I'll weigh the other tray, because even though these are identical, they don't weigh the same. I'll weigh that tray and then sandwich it, flip it all over, because I've already drained the myoglobin out. And then I'll know how much my weight is actually of meat, and I can do my calculations. I'll mix it up. I have a handy dandy, it's a Rubbermaid thing. This is my little shaker that I mix up my spices in. We'll get the spices absolutely ready. We've got 15 to 20 minutes on the culture. Once I activate it and put it in the distilled water, here, this I'll probably have to microwave this a little bit. It probably won't be warm enough. I'll have to get it to about 80 degrees using the old thermometer. So we'll get that going, grind this, and we'll see you in a few minutes. And like I say, you wouldn't want to try this if you haven't already pre-drained the myoglobin from your meat. Now, I may still sling a little bit out, but we've weighed the pan, and now we can flip it over. That's how I do that. Maybe not how you want to do it, but that's how I do it. All right, quick update. I've got my spices all measured out, salt and everything, measured the dry stuff in here, dextrose, and then I just give it the old shaky. I'm not going to shake it completely, but I also want to show you what we've got with our water. We took our water, well more than we need. We only need a half cup to go with this particular Bactoferm FLC, and we take our little probe and we run down in our water. Says it's 82 degrees, about perfect, but because we microwaved it, I'll put the top down and stir it all around, and we're just about ready to get out and do the grind. We'll show that. We'll grind that. We could actually mix up our culture now, let it's 10 minutes, well, it says 15 to 20. We want to let it get going, but I would rather just grind it. I'll even take time to clean, put it in the dishwasher, get everything set up, get that going, and then it'll be in the refrigerator staying cold, because since we have a big grind and I don't have much fat, because it's a shoulder top half of a shoulder top, well, the second from the top half or quarter is what this is, ground up. We don't have that much fat. And normally with like a sopressata, you would want big kind of rustic looking, like it's chopped up versus using a meat grinder. But since we don't have that, I'm going to go ahead and run it through the big anyway. That's 5/8. And then we'll put it back in the refrigerator while we wait for our stuff to acclimate. Does that make sense? Got to keep it cold, because we're going to put that in here while the culture is timing out. We'll be doing the mix a bit with our mixer here to get all of our spices in. I probably won't even show you that on camera, just to keep the video short. Well, all right, now what we got going on here, we got our tray of meat here. I'm gonna lay my saran wrap that way. And let's see the basic size of chunks of meat that we have. Because I have a 10-12, these will be plenty big. They'll fall down the throat without too much trouble. So we'll take this and we'll transfer all of it because there's not too much. There's only about 6 pounds. I forget the exact number. I've already converted it to ounces. So I'll put this up in here, drop some down the hole to get her started. Right, take the rest of it. Don't turn over on me, Mr. Pan. We'll give you just a real quick kind of B-roll of it grinding, and I'm going to catch it in this pan below. I think you'll be able to see it. Like I said, I'm going to grind it. I'm going to put it in this tub, put it back in the refrigerator, do my cleanup of the grinder, put this away while it stays good and chill, then come back and do this, and I'll probably have to reheat my water. But we're going to do it anyway. We got foot operated. All right, that looks like that's all of that. I should probably do a time lapse to zoom this up a little bit. Anyway, this is going back in the refrigerator. I'm gonna clean this up, move the cart back, put everything away while it stays cool. Yes, I'll definitely have to heat up my water again. So we have it, we've got our thermometer here. We wanna hit 80 degrees in our water. Says it's 81. Well, that's good enough for government work. Let me set this aside. Now I'm going to use a half a cup of this, and I've got a 1 cup guy here. I'm going to stir this up. I need a metal spoon. Be right back. All right, got my spoon, and I'm going to pour approximately half. That looks good. Now stir, stir, stir. Make sure that we're uniform, because I had put this in the microwave. It's been sitting. It should be just fine. Now, using the Bactoferm FLC is what I'm using. Let me check my temperature. All right, come up. The big proofer is sitting at 102.5 degrees. I'm going for a quick ferment for the first couple of hours, and I may knock it down and let it go slow, just to get it out of the danger zone. And according to my sensor push, great company by the way, they helped me out with something one time, just replacing a melted one. Sensor push, it says it is 104.4. They're jiving pretty close. What I don't want to do is it says the kind of the maximum on the package says it is 115, I believe. Let me pull it out. We're getting ready to use it. It's leftovers here. It says, yeah. It says for both slow and fast acidification based upon temperatures and during fermentation. For slow, light acidification profile, the optimum temperature is 80 degrees Fahrenheit. For high acidification, it is 95 to 115. I don't want to overshoot it, so I brought it down. Then I'll get it pretty good. Got enough dextrose to handle that. Ought to be below 5.2. 5.3 is pretty good, but below that's going to be fine, and I want it to be a little bit more tart anyway. All right, so let me open this. The standard for this, according to the thing right here, it says use anything less than 10 pounds or less, use a half of teaspoon. I wish they had given us a gram weight, but they don't. So let me see if I can get this going. And it says put it into a half cup of 80 degree water. Here's my half teaspoon. Now I'm going to put my timer on. I've got 15 minutes to dump the meat in here, mix it with the spices, and go from there. All right? So it says 15 to 20 minutes. It's not going to die at 21 minutes. I've read somewhere, or maybe it was looking at their documentation, CHR's documentation, I think they said it will die in 45 if it's not used. So that's where we are. And of course, our meat should be good and cold because we don't want it to smear, you know. 'Cause if we're trying to go for the big chunk and the big white pieces of meat, that's what we have to do. All right, do this with the old naked paw. Should have a glove on, but since I'm getting ready to ferment it, I'm pretty sure we're gonna override any bugs that might be in there. All right, so we got that in there. I'm going to hit pause, and this is maybe where I mix up, but what I do is I have my mixture here, and I'll turn a little bit, sprinkle a little bit, turn a little bit more, sprinkle a little bit more, backspin it, turn a little bit more. Then when we're time, we'll add our water. All right, we're within a minute of the 15 minimum. We've got our casings. Now these are old. I may not actually hold them in the water for too long. It depends. If you had a fibrous casing, you definitely want to do that for a little bit to soften them up. These are a little old. I think I'll do the same thing. I think I'll give them a quick dip to get them soft. You can't put them in hot water. They'll shrink on you, and you don't want to leave them in there the whole time. So we want to just kind of get them in there, get them out, just to make sure we don't split along the flat seams. If you have water, what I like to do is put a little salt in my water, boil my water, get it up to temperature, let it cool down. The purpose of boiling the water, kill anything that might be in it that I'm going to use. I don't want to, you don't want to spray it. Now I also have my little sprayer of the antifungal. I'll sprinkle them when I get them done, just to make sure that they're okay. I'm going to let that go here and time out. Now, we have our culture ready. I'm going to give a final wipe down of the area which the casing is going to lay down on and be from there. Now, you can also take plastic if you want. Take plastic sheeting and lay out on your countertop and do the same thing. Now, I'll go ahead and give it one last little stir and hope my little guys have happy hunting. Give it a little bit. We're starting to warm up the grind a little bit. Maybe we should have given it another 5 minutes in the refrigerator before I pulled it out to help reduce the smearing that we might have. So I'm going to go ahead and get this cut in. Then I will take my casing after I get the meat in the squirter and the stuffer, and then we'll just dip it through, and the next cut will be ready to go. All right, we've got it separated out, ready to go. We've got our stuffer here. We're going to start bringing her on down. About the time we see it right here at the tube, we'll dunk the little casing. I got a hog ring cured up. There it goes. Stop it, back up. Got a hog ring set up. I'm going to do one big sausage each time. You can take them, go so far, put a marker on the table, go so far, squish it up nice and tight, put a little string around it. Do maybe a hog ring after the string because you don't want your hog ring cutting into your casing. Maybe put another string there on it. Do another one, pull it out. But that's a lot of work. So I'm just going to get them wet. They're just wet. They're not stretchy just yet. And then we'll pull this on this way. I can't tell because my monitor's got stuff in that area right there. I can't see exactly what this is going to look like. But then what we do is we just try to hold right behind the tube and squish it out. And I just had a mistake right there. There we go. Lost it. All right, there's one. We'll put a tag on it. After we weigh it, we'll see how much we have in there. I've got to reset this to get a full load. I've got a little bit more in here, and we probably end up with just 2 sausage, one maybe longer than the other. It's like walking on a hill in East Tennessee. You got to have one leg longer than the other so you walk in a straight line. All right, here's number 2. Let's see if we can get her in there. See what we got. We've got our hog ring already staged, ready to go. Hopefully we can get this one full or mostly full. If we have a little bit left over, we'll use it for the lump for testing the pH. Every now and then it loops a little past my thumb, but we should be able to get a nice tight casing. I guess it's performance anxiety since I'm doing this in front of you. I get it to about the edge of my hand right there, and that's when I cut it off. We are going to have a little extra. Don't fall. There we go. All right, that's number 2. Had an odd sounding snap. Let's see how much we have. We don't really have enough for another sausage, but I might do it in a smaller casing just to get that last little bit. Now I've got this. I checked the volume and trying to figure out what the best casing to use. And so I have a pepperoni casing, which is a fibrous casing, protein line fibrous casing. So for that, I definitely need to get a little bit of water inside of it, not just on the outside to soften it, but I need to get a little bit inside the casing and squish it out, you know, wring it out like you would a chitlin, get the water out. Got a hog ring set up, had to change the size because this is smaller. It's a size that gives me a little bit of trouble from time to time when they close, because sometimes they want to burst the casing at the bottom. And that's all I'll get out of this. I have a tube full of meat. I'll save this for the lump so that I can see how the pH is developing while it's in the chamber. And that's about all we have for today's show. I may come back and save this until after we get the cure and the dry and let you look at it. Also may tack on what these things look like when they're in the chamber and then after they've started to cure, starting to ferment. Now, what we do have left, like I said, I got to weigh them to get my start weight, put my tag on them, and we'll get that going. So we'll see you in the next cut. If there's still some more run time in this video, we'll see you then. Apologies, it goes longer than I ever intended to. We'll do the second half. We'll do a little bit of testing, that kind of stuff. Remember, if you will, help me with the digital footprint. You don't know how much that matters. Do the subscribe, the comment, and sharing where possible. Tell people about this if it's giving you any value at all. Thank you.